and then we'll dive in. Carly, take it away.
Thanks, Lindsay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the April Chip Rooms Coffee and Communications event. My name is Carly Gabriel, and I'm a communications specialist at UNC Health and also serve as a volunteer on the Chip Rooms membership committee. And I'll kick us off with a few housekeeping items, and then we can dive into our roundtable discussion on marketing to seniors. First, please save the date for our annual fall conference. This year, we will be in Charleston at the Francis Marion Hotel from November 30th to December 2nd. And on that note, our call for speakers for the conference is now open. So if you have an idea for a topic that would be of interest to our engaged audience of healthcare marketing and communication professionals, please consider applying. The deadline to apply is the end of this month, and we'll drop that application link in the chat for you. All right, that's it for announcements. I'd like to encourage everyone to continue to introduce yourself in the chat if you haven't done so already. This morning, we're going to dive into the topic of marketing to seniors. To start us off, I'm excited to introduce two of my teammates from UNC Health. Elizabeth McCrae is a user experience researcher for consumer insights and research at UNC Health. She will present a breakdown of the senior demographic. Next, Todd Pritchard, System Director for Marketing Strategy at UNC Health, will present how this demographic fits into his team's marketing strategies. Thank you so much for joining us today. Elizabeth, you can take it away.
All right, thank you so much, Carly. So as she said, Todd and I are going to walk through just some demographics about seniors and then some tactics that we've used for this really important group. So to get started, just to center us all, who are seniors? Who are we talking about? So we've got three generations that are 65 plus that you might consider seniors. The greatest generation, they're about 94 plus. They're only about 2% of this demographic, but very important. And then you have the silent generation who are 77 to 94. They're about 44% of this population. And then we also have the boomers, the baby boomers, who are about 58 to 76. So not all have hit that 65 mark. They're about 54% of the 65 and older population. They're 22% of the total US population. And this number really shocked me. 10,000 people turn 65 every day. So this is really why we talk about the boomers so much, because it's such a huge group. And looking at specifically North Carolina, because that's where we are, the 65 plus age group is growing quickly. And in the next 20 years, it's really going to alter our patient demographics. In 2025, 1 in 5 North Carolinians will be over the age of 65. There are more people over the age of 60 than under the age of 18 in North Carolina, effective 2019. And this isn't all just our population aging. We have 60 plus moving in. So North and South Carolina are right between the New York and Florida. So I'm sure we all know people who have moved in there, as well as what they call baby chasers. So with all of the influx of population coming to our new job opportunities, we're also seeing a lot of baby chasers coming to follow those grandbabies. I'm not sure if everyone's muted. And then just a quick image to show what this looks like is that counties with more people over the age of 60, right now there are 20, or in 2018, there were 20 North Carolina counties where there were more children than those over the age of 60. And by 2038, there will only be 5 counties with more children than those over the age of 60. So just a really big shift in terms of our demographics. And, you know, when we get to attitudes of these consumers, we see that there might be certain assumptions that marketers make about these consumers that are untrue. For example, that these consumers are old and tired, that they're seeking help aging or need anti-aging products, when the truth is that boomers are changing this lexicon. They don't want to be reminded of their age. They want to be empowered with products that they see as positive and preventative and proactive. I recently actually saw that Jamie Lee Curtis presented and said, take anti-aging out of your vocabulary. She is pro-aging. She wants to age with energy and grace and verve And that is the attitude that a lot of boomers are bringing to this. 84% say they exercise regularly, 90% practice preventative care, 77% watch their diet. Another assumption might be that boomers do not use technology or they're uncomfortable with it. And what we've actually seen is that consumers' daily smartphone use by age, those who are boomers, so 50 to 69, about 95 to 97% of them are using their phone every single day. When we got into more of the greatest generation, or not the greatest, sorry, the silent generation, the 70 plus, 88% of them are still using their phone every day. And what they're doing with those phones, the same thing that a lot of people do. They're using their email, they're browsing the internet. So maybe some of those assumptions that this population won't be on their mobile phone to do business is not true. And then this is just a little fun fact that 68% of boomers watch YouTube videos to be entertained. So they're not necessarily all network TV. They're watching YouTube just like other populations. And if you're sitting there thinking, but my mom really does use her phone a lot, but my dad hates his phone, or all right, we have the baby chasers coming in and buying houses, but a lot of our patients are experiencing the difficulties with the housing price increases, and they're being priced out of their homes, and that's a really big difficulty. These are broad strokes. And so what we do at UNC Health is we look for ways to break this down. And one way that we do this is with Experian Mosaic groups. And this helps us understand different attitudes and experiences of these consumers. So I just pulled a few here to kind of show the differences in the examples. So for example, booming with confidence, these are established couples in their peak earning years, and there's still groups within that group of those who are using golf carts, those philanthropic, or there's thriving boomers who maybe are doing something different with their money and their time. So we understand that this is a broad strokes of who these people are that we need to really get granular. And with that, I will pass it to Todd.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Good morning, everyone. I saw Amanda put in the chat there about, do they watch more YouTube than my kids? And I can promise you they do not watch more YouTube than my kids. But I do know that they are on YouTube, and they're very digitally savvy. So while I set this up, I just wanted to kind of take a quick agenda of how I'm going to try to cover what I'll cover, and then hopefully there's some conversation we can have at the end. So when Carly asked us to present this, y'all just got a very good snapshot of how fortunate we are at UNC Health to have Elizabeth and her insights team really inform all of the work we do. So their foundational insights are paramount to the great work that we're able to pull together. And so what I wanted to do was kind of on the heels of that, talk a little bit about the Mosaic segments and really show a real life example of how those insights were put into action. And then I thought we can talk about how do we inform a media buy, but I think there might be good for us. I have leave some time for conversation at the end, which is maybe the most important piece of communicating with the 65 plus category, which is the messaging and the creative development. So I'm going to save a little bit of time for that. Hopefully we can have our coffee and our conversation at the end of that. So as Elizabeth mentioned, she kind of transitioned into these Mosaic segments. And so I thought a good example to look at would be a relatively recent one for those of you that know. We opened a hospital in Holly Springs not too long ago. And as we were preparing to tell the community about that hospital, we were preparing a pretty large scale awareness campaign. And so the first thing that we started with was a market analysis. And that market analysis showed us that of the, I think it's 71 types in 19 Mosaic groups, 71% of the Holly Springs service area for that hospital was actually made up of 6 Mosaic segments. So we had a really concentrated population across 6 segments. And so what we were able to do is break those segments out and take a deeper dive into who are these segments and how are they consuming media, where are they at, what types of things do we need to know about them to put together a strong media plan. So you can see here we had the Power Elite segment, Flourishing Families, Promising Families. There's our Booming with Confidence, Singles and Starters, and then Suburban Style. So Elizabeth, if you jump to the next slide, we took these insights and we were able to really use these to better understand, maybe the most important thing about putting a media plan together is where are these folks getting and consuming their media? And so you can see across the six segments here, I think for the most part, nothing really surprising. However, when we get to that booming with confidence segment, you see newspaper at 25%, social media at 25%, but digital display actually at 50%. So referring back to that slide Elizabeth showed that, they are tech savvy, they are living online. These are the things that really we were able to take these insights and turn them into a strong media plan. If you go to the next slide, we'll take a look at how we do that. So we understand, okay, here are the mosaic segments. Here's what we know about them. We know they're more likely to click on web page links while they're driving, while they're browsing the web. And they still do rely on newspaper to keep them informed. However, when we did an analysis of what media is available in that Holly Springs service area, the News and Observer is a little bit too broad of an area. So we were able to lean on local magazines that still provide that hyper-focused news channel through print. We also leverage WRAL.com for the digital piece. Again, going back to not only meeting people where they are while they're on WRAL.com, but while they're looking for like information. So the opening of a hospital, relatively newsworthy, what better place to reach them on WRAL where they're already grabbing their morning news. And then social media, we know from the insights, also was one of their top 3 media consumption channels. So a tailored and targeted Facebook campaign was also used to inform this strategy. Next slide. Ooh. And then so I just got a quick snapshot of our media plan here, but you can see all the red arrows on the left side of the screen. Those are pieces of media that tied back to reaching the booming with confidence segment. So we had that display with WRAL, paid social, Main and Broad, which is a very hyper local magazine to the Holly Springs area, Suburban Living, and Go West, which is another local print publication. And so once we have our media plan in place, again, fortunate here at UNC Health to have really strong colleagues across our marketing team. And so we were able to work with our content team to develop things, but using, again, insights that were driven to develop that creative. So keeping the theme of insights, consumer preference, understanding, user testing. We work with Elizabeth's team a lot to understand, what are these consumers looking for? What are they responding to? And then when things are in market from a digital perspective, we'll do a lot of A/B testing where applicable. And our goal is always to be continuously optimizing our campaigns. So I thought at this point, it'd be great I know we may have another speaker, but I also wanted to leave some time at the end for us to talk a little bit about how we talk to those folks 65 and over as well.
Lindsay, would you like to continue to the other speaker or have some chat time now?
I think we're okay to just go right into the chat. So if you guys have any questions for the UNC Health team, I think we can start there. This time can also be used to share your own best practices or what's on your mind for this topic.
So I have a question. I am in Boone, up in the mountains, and we have sort of an interesting mix of university, very educated, also extremely, wealthy second home. And then we also have a very rural population. So what have you all seen in the difference between behavior of seniors in the rural, more like just that kind of population versus the suburban and urban seniors?
I'll just start because I'm from Boone, so I have to help Sarah out. Grew up there, so I know exactly what you're talking about. I think this is where the mosaic segments come in, as well as just understanding who you are trying to talk to, or what is your plan and goal here. So that's something we talk about a lot, where if you are trying to do a rural outreach, your communication and your content is going to be different from what you're maybe trying to do to a professor and say, hey, you should just walk down the street. So I think that's where that concept of, well, we know that you have all had certain life experiences and you're a certain age and you should have certain screenings, but we do need to communicate differently to different people. And we can pull some of those mosaic segments to understand better exactly what your attitude is and where you might be falling.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I would just say too, I think that's the beauty of having a market analysis and being able to understand which segments fall in your market. Because really those insights go on to inform the creative. And so, you saw the groups, but the types within the groups really kind of give you a little bit more texture into what are they interested in? What are they motivated in? What's gonna incite a reaction or an engagement from that target. And so I think Elizabeth hit the nail on the head, that segmentation is really what gives you the ability to speak directly and effectively to each individual consumer. And I saw someone I think Bill had put in the chat about the results of the campaign. The results were really strong. Again, being an awareness campaign, we were looking for eyeballs, but I will say that interestingly to me, maybe it shouldn't have been, the Booming with Confidence segment was the best performer across our digital channels. So really does speak to, I think probably what we learned through that campaign was it probably wouldn't have been, without the insights, the #1 media preference that we would have chosen for 65 plus, just without the data. But understanding those insights and then seeing it follow through and actually prove out that way in the results was really, really interesting.
We do have a couple of other questions in the chat. Was lower income seniors a consideration when placing together the media plan?
Yeah, again, so we focused our campaign, again, going for awareness. So we were looking for the most eyeballs in the most efficient way. So, those 6 segments that made up 71% of the market is really where we focused. So we didn't break it out across demographic from a household income perspective. However, household income is one of the factors that does inform the segmentation. So in some way, it was already factored in across those 6 segments that we did end up targeting. Elizabeth, I don't want to misspeak. I think that's correct. I think that household income is one of the factors that Experian puts into the Mosaic data.
Yeah, it is.
And then Grace started to address this question in the chat, but I think it's interesting because of all the rural areas in North and South Carolina, it's definitely something to consider. Was broadband internet accessible in the areas that you targeted?
Yeah, so living in Holly Springs, we get a bad rap for being out in the middle of nowhere, but it is a pretty populated area. So no, we didn't have any of those issues with this particular campaign, but certainly in other parts of North Carolina that could be an issue. But for this campaign, relatively highly populated, densely populated, with no broadband issues.
And then another question from the chat. Was radio ever a considered media channel? Elizabeth, are there any metrics on radio? And Todd, was that ever considered?
I'm going to pass that one to Todd because I don't have the metrics. Those are Todd Smith.
It's interesting. I just had this conversation with our media director for our agency not that long ago. We were talking about radio, and radio, the price has gone up. So radio as a medium has gotten more expensive. And interestingly, with everyone going work from home over the course of the pandemic, you lost a lot of that drive time, which is where radio really became valuable. So I think we're starting to see an uptick of listenership going back up. But the price was going up and the number of listeners was going down. So we haven't included radio in our buys since the pandemic. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out going forward into next year and beyond. But it was not a consideration in this campaign. Oh, I shouldn't say that. We had some streaming radio, but as far as terrestrial, like drive radio, we did not include it. But streaming radio has been up. Again, more people working from home. I think that's a really great channel for awareness and reach. But as it relates, I was assuming the question was around kind of AM drive radio. So, but radio as a collective, streaming is something that we're absolutely including in our campaigns where applicable.
Then another question from the chat. Bill has lots of great questions today. Thank you, Bill. Did you consider targeting the children of these seniors since they can be involved in helping the parents make decisions?
Yeah, that's a great.
Oh,
go ahead.
I was going to start that one off, Todd, is that we've definitely found that. And I didn't include in this, we've done some research about, what are millennial attitudes, Gen X attitudes versus their parents, because millennial and Gen X don't necessarily get their preventative care. So like, will that impact how they're caregiving for their parents in the future? And Todd and I have tried thinking of ways to target the children of the seniors. And what we found the break point is, and Todd can maybe talk more about this, is at what point do you overtake your parents? Like, how do you target someone who is at that moment looking for a geriatric doctor for their parents versus just kind of slowly, gradually, yes, I'm going to the doctor with my parents, and yes, I know I need to help with this. So that's kind of how do you target that exact moment in time?
Absolutely agree.
Okay, great. Any more questions for Todd or Elizabeth?
I had a question about the Thriving Boomers group that you mentioned on the slide. Have you guys done any grassroots efforts? I mean, this is a little bit random, but it's come up in conversations like pickleball is a big thing now, and like maybe community YMCA programs. Like, what are your thoughts on things like that? Or really for anybody, if there's others on this group that have had success in that category or have tried things out.
I think it's a super interesting point. We haven't necessarily done that, but I do think that it's a really interesting take. I will say, I actually had this conversation with Elizabeth just the other day. We're looking at potentially like places like Nextdoor to get a little bit more granular in our targeting for seniors. So not exactly at the heart of your question, but other platforms that are hyper localized like that, specifically around neighborhoods. I know that I live in a neighborhood where there is pickleball, and that thing is packed all the time. So I either need to take it up and learn how to play it at some point, or I'm going to miss the boat. But it's an interesting take. We haven't done that work yet.
All right, one last call for questions. Seeing none, Lindsay, would you like to introduce our next speaker?
I'm not sure if he's actually on, so we can just keep going with questions.
Actually, I'm pretty sure Grant is on. Grant.
Oh, he is. Okay.
Regan. So Grant Regan is here from Wesley Commons in Greenwood, South Carolina. And Wesley Commons is a full service continuing care retirement community. And he's got 18 years of experience there, marketing to a real wide variety of senior segments. So Grant, do you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about your approach to the various senior audiences that you work with? I hope you.
Hey, Michelle, hopefully you guys can see me okay. Sorry about that. I've got a bit of a sinus infection, so my voice may go in and out. We are a full service CCRC, or you may know it as a life plan community. In South Carolina, we are regulated by the Department of Consumer Affairs. In North Carolina, I believe, is regulated, like many states, by the Department of Insurance. So as far as that goes, there may be a little, some subtle differences in how we go about things. But what a CCRC is a continuing care retirement community. That means you have the full continuum. You're a licensed entity with the full continuum of care, that being independent living, assisted living, or CRCF, community residential care facility, and skilled nursing. Now, we also have a home health component to that as well. As far as our service lines, those are our typical, I came out of acute care hospital systems almost 20 years ago. And our service lines are independent living, assisted living, skilled nursing, but then you have subsets of each one of those. And I can't echo enough. I forget who the speaker was because I was on the phone at that point. I had not actually gotten through on the Zoom, but someone said something to the effect of that, you better not treat seniors like they're seniors. They again, 75 is the new 50. They don't want to, when they come and tour our community, they don't want to see assisted living. They don't want to, from the inside, they don't want to see skilled nursing. They want to know it's there. It's a great safety net, but what they are totally driven by is active adult amenities. We have pickleball, we have tennis, we have a putting green, we have a 10,000 square foot wellness complex with an indoor pool. I don't mean to turn this into a commercial or anything. I'm just trying to explain to everybody, we're a 165 acre campus. Our average age of entry is about 75 years old. Our average resident age is about 82. The average length of stay that we'll find in independent living is about 10 years. They are very concerned. I say it somewhat tongue in cheek, but I'm very serious. They are very concerned with food. You better have good food. They go to bed thinking about what they're going to eat tomorrow and what they had today that was good and what was not. They like to travel. They're very well educated. Typically, and we use the Claritas prism clusters as far as trying to segment our typical demographics, and we just expanded some of those this year. They're somewhat familiar with Facebook. They're digitally savvy. However, they still like to hold something in their hands. You still got to have collateral materials, brochures, flyers. Newspaper is not dead. Just ask anybody in senior marketing. What we found to be a pretty clever way to get into the hands of a lot of seniors for another one of our subsets, which is inpatient rehab in our skilled nursing area. We have, what's the one thing that every senior looks forward to if they're having a hospital stay, preferably a 3-day qualifying hospital stay? That's getting the newspaper, and they're going to do the crossword puzzle. We sponsored the crossword puzzle in several counties, and that gets us in front of every single person that's 65 or over that may have gone in for an extended joint surgery or some type of stay that would pre-qualify them for the Medicare Part A benefit. Assisted living is a little different. It's 100% need driven. You don't look for an assisted living or to get on a waiting list for an assisted living unless you've had some type of event or your parent has had some type of event. The same goes with skilled nursing. Once you hit that point, I jokingly say, by show of hands, obviously I can't see everybody's hands, how many people can't wait to move into a nursing home? I promise you, nobody's raising their hand right now. But it is something where we strive to be the best nursing home that we can be in the Lakelands area in South Carolina. We are a brand new facility. We just opened in 2019. We have an 80-bed, all private rooms. It's a great facility. I'd love to talk with anybody more privately after this. If you want to give me a shout, that's fine. I don't really know what else to go into right now other than to open it up for that's. Obviously, I'm not coming at it from the perspective nor the budget, I might add, of a large health system anymore. So.
Thanks. That was helpful. I think to have both perspectives is great because you see the hospital side, you see your side. And again, we'll open it back up for questions. Thank you, Grant.
Grant, where do you see the majority of your leads coming from? Do you think it's regionally or right there locally, or are you experiencing a lot of folks from other places kind of moving to the area that are interested too? So
typically nationwide, what you see is for independent living leads are generated within a 30 to 40 mile radius of the community. We are the absolute 1% of CCRCs. We're in Greenwood, South Carolina. The name of it's Wesley Commons. And we generate most, if not all, of our leads from either the mountains or the coast. We say we're the second stop on the retirement ladder. If you're familiar with Sun City down around Bluffton or Hilton Head, that's kind of a first stop. And then when seniors retire, they move down there, they get tired of Bloody Marys every morning and golf cart traffic jams. Then they start looking for somewhere else that might not be as crowded. The other thing is, nobody likes a hurricane, but I tell you, once they've lived through a couple evacuations, they're like, we could probably find somewhere better than this. So then they start looking our way. We are not the typical CCRC in that regard. But we do generate, we have 2 full-time sales counselors that are on the road probably 2 weeks a month outside of our primary market area, which is the exact opposite of assisted living and skilled nursing. Assisted living and skilled nursing, most people don't even cross county lines. That's what we typically find. Now, we'll say this, that what we found, and I think it has something to do with the regulation and the potential tax benefits of CCRCs in other states based upon what department or agency licenses them. We don't see very many that cross state lines. If you're even in Charlotte, North Carolina, we can't attract you to South Carolina very often. Not to Greenwood anyway. So we get an occasional move from another state because they have a relative here, maybe someone on the medical staff at Self Regional here. One of the docs has a parent that wants to move closer to them, and then that seems to be a little bit of a trend happening now. But we typically don't cross state lines.
Kind of echoing a question that we had earlier, who makes the decision to enter the community? Do children shop around and start that conversation? Is it mostly your residents who find you, or is it a combination?
So that's a very good question, and it varies based upon service line. So for independent living, it's most of the time, always, I would say 90% of the time, it's the individual that's looking to move in. And I have to laugh because I would say 90% of that is the female. So never discount the power of the purse. They typically drag the husband in and he's, all slumped over. I don't want to, do this. And the wife is very hyped about it. And then after he kind of gets acclimated, looks around, we've got about a 5,000 square foot woodworking facility. It's a really neat campus. It really is. You can find something, anybody can find something to do here. So we see that and we directly advertise for that service line to the individual. And that's when, you come in, you take them to dinner, you show them the area. They typically spend about 48 hours with you. We either offer them an option to stay here in it's an apartment that we've converted kind of to a hotel suite here on campus, or if they're young enough and want some activity, we'll actually make reservations for them downtown. There's several restaurants that have a pretty decent nightlife scene, and they may go down there. It really is. I mean, I can remember my grandparents at that age, they didn't act like seniors do today. Now, as far as to further answer your question, as far as assisted living goes, that's where you want to get in touch with, not necessarily the senior, but you want to appeal to the son, the daughter. You want to make sure that the medical network is aware of what all you have to offer. Community sponsorships, civic events, newspaper. Newspaper is certainly not dead when it comes to senior citizens. They read it every day. We advertise in it probably every other day. That's been an amazing market for us. Now, Greenwood is what I would consider, rural. It's more rural. It's not near as cosmopolitan as say Greenville or Columbia even, but we have had great success still with local papers in reaching the sons and daughters, going, Mom, you really should, we're having to come over and look at medication management. You've had a couple of falls. Why don't we get you somewhere where you can embrace your independence and somebody's there to help you with things like that?
So Grant, that was a nice segue to a point I was going to make about grassroots marketing. So I'm Carol Sanders. I work for DisposeRx. We're an at-home medication disposal device that you can find at about 60% of the chain pharmacies. They typically hand our packets out with opioid prescriptions, although the packets work with all medications. But we have done a lot of grassroots marketing through residential facilities like you're talking about, right? People, and we really have not done it overtly. We've offered content about the point of falls, right, and disposing of medications, which can cause confusion, and ER visits and hospital stays. So that's been very, very effective for us, as well as the National Council on Aging, AARP, and some local organizations as well. Meals on Wheels, believe it or not, that's been a great source for us across the country. We work with almost 500 community outreach partners. These are coalitions, church groups, and others that we do provide donated packets to them for Meals on Wheels and other coalition activities. But we also provide content. They like for us to be seen as a partner with them in providing content. Most recently, we had a number of injury prevention coordinators at trauma centers, levels 1, 2, and 3. They all have the injury prevention coordinators. And so we're working with about 25 different injury prevention coordinators in different health systems across the country, again, to provide content for them and packets to prevent falls with seniors. So it has been very, very effective, an effective way, a bit tedious, I will say, but nevertheless, the education piece is as critical to us as the packet itself. And so it's been effective for us as far as grassroots goes.
One thing I was going to point out, Sarah, this is kind of on your question, because you asked how can healthcare systems partner with CCRCs to provide needs. Our new Mint Hill Medical Center is actually connected to a Crestwind senior living facility. And so we created golf cart paths, walking trails. We recruit volunteers from their community to come help at the hospital. We create events in our cafe. We create educational lunches. And then we go over to their health center and provide talks, whether it's an informational talk or cooking in their in the community center there. So if there is one within close proximity of your hospital, I feel like those mutually beneficial partnerships are great. And I mean, they love us and we love them. And when it does come time for them to have a total knee or a total hip or just preventative care, it's great. So again, that's a little bit more grassroots, very organic, doesn't feel salesy. And it's a great relationship for us.
I like the idea of recruiting from independent living to volunteer, because that way they get to know and they get comfortable in the hospital, and then they get to meet people and have that experience. I really love that idea because it also meets our need for volunteers.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, we have a great number of individuals who did pre-pandemic volunteer here at Self Regional, and now I think they're starting to. And it's not necessarily the hospital. I think the hospital's open to it, but it's our seniors who are kind of just now starting to venture back out and want to do things like that again.
Sarah, I was just going to mention quickly in terms of sort of like partnerships, and we don't have any sort of official relationships with any CCRCs or anything in Pinehurst, but there are several neighborhoods near our main campus. They're sort of the core neighborhoods within this Pinehurst community where you have an older population in many of them, and they're very engaged within their neighborhoods. And we've sort of fostered these very informal relationships where we get a lot of volunteers from certain neighborhoods. We have doctors and other physicians do educational talks in these neighborhoods at clubhouses and those sorts of things. And they're very informal, but it almost gives folks in that neighborhood this vibe of sort of an insider into knowing what the system has to offer, meeting new people who have come into the system. So it's very organic, but there are some very successful ways we've introduced providers to those communities, and they get the sense that they're really getting in on the ground floor.
I have a new personal experience that might fit in with this conversation. So my dad, who's 68 and very active, just got a total shoulder replacement surgery a week ago. And he did it because it was holding him back. He loves to work out, he loves to ski, and it was giving him so much pain and so many limitations that was holding him back from what he wanted to do at 68. Now that he's gotten the shoulder, he's already looking forward to ski season and making plans that he is going to put himself on the path to recovery for. So, this massive surgery at 68, is that something that we're seeing more of? Are people getting surgeries like this to better their quality of life, at 68 plus? Is that common?
So from a healthcare or a health center perspective, I don't know what those stats look like, but I can tell you from a CCRC perspective, and being a fairly active adult community, we see that all the time. We have one of our residents used to be a marathon runner. I think she had a hip replacement at somewhere around 86, so she could still compete. She's not as fast as she used to be, but she still gets out every single day and runs. And now I want to say she's somewhere around 90. Anecdotally, I can tell you that an active, which I mean, everybody, I think everybody pretty much subscribes to this now. The more active you are, an active lifestyle leads to longevity. We see that every single day here. The residents who are the most active certainly live the longest and the happiest.
Partly, my mother-in-law just did it was a total knee, but it was the same scenario. She got one knee done. She's actually getting ready to have the other one done. And every time I've heard her tell anybody about it, the number one thing she says is, "I'd like to chase my grandchildren around."
Yeah.
And so and she's 64, I believe. So yeah, I think that's probably only going to become more common.
Right.
Well, let me just say 64 and 68, that is very young. Okay. Very young. I will tell a quick story. My in-laws are 91 and 90 and a half. And they moved to Raleigh to be closer to family, and tried living in the North Hills area, if you know Raleigh very well, right? Mixed use, tried to live there for a while, and they were just too close, having downsized from living at the beach for years. So they did not tell their children, but at 85 and 86, they built a home in a Del Webb community. And they have been thrilled. We encourage them to do assisted living, but they're independent living, and my 91-year-old father-in-law is still driving. I'm not sure it's the best thing in the world, but they're independent and loving it. So.
Yeah, I think from a print perspective, I've seen a lot of the imagery with the just happy, active older adults with their grandkids on a smartphone, sometimes on a golf course. I mean, painting that picture that meets them where they're at has seemed to be really successful in a lot of campaigns that I've seen. I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on, again, if they're using print or maybe, commercials, what they've tried that's worked.
Well, I will say this, the way that we attract independent living prospects to informational events is through hard print invitations to luncheons. And we tried actually showing pictures of active seniors and, you know, happy lifestyle and stuff like that. But honestly, what gets the most results is if you have nice pictures of food. So
We're going to have to start trying that. We're going to go to
you got to get them through their stomach.
Grant, when you and I were talking the other day on the phone, you were mentioning how, you know, there's definitely lots of people online, but people definitely want something tangible in their hands.
Absolutely. We still print a full, I'm going to call it a glossy, even though it's matte, brochure. It's probably a 10-page full brochure. We do trifolds. We have a lot of printed collaterals that we can send out. We have rack cards. They really like to see that. They respond well to what we do through those printed collaterals. We also give them a lot of pens. They like pens because they take a lot of notes. So when they come, they're writing the whole time. Yes, somebody just said they like everything free. That's an absolute fact.
I don't know if
Don't
that's
mention
anything.
don't mention the F word around a senior citizen.
Just going back to the point on imagery, I would add that I think that kind of what Elizabeth shared in the insights is that we try to think of lifestyle imagery that positions them the way that they see themselves, and that's active and for that kind of pro-aging approach. So that's really, I think, that what leads our imagery for our advertising is trying to create a feeling of what their preconceived perceptions are, and that's that they are active and they want to age gracefully and be healthy. And so that's really what leads our imagery selection.
So I have a question. We've done a couple of campaigns that have thrown back to some of the iconic things that boomers and Gen X, had when they were growing up, like mixtapes and boom boxes and things like that. Has anyone had success with that kind of a campaign? We had an ortho campaign that ultimately we didn't use, but it used a lot of imagery from the 70s. Stuff like his hip pain, trip in your groove, stuff like that. Has anyone had any success using that type of imagery?
We haven't, but I remember boom boxes, so maybe I'm showing my age.
We're not that old to be remembering boom boxes. I think boom boxes are maybe just more of a slightly younger, more of us in our 50s.
Yeah, we haven't tried any imagery like that. Honestly, we tried to hit them where they are with grandkids and pull on heartstrings that way. But literally, we get so much more when they get an advertisement with cheesecake or a steak or whatever, a plated entree. That right there, and I guess maybe because we're inviting them to a lunch, and we usually do our lunches at pretty high-end establishments like New York Prime, Ruth's Chris, a Morton's, something like that. So it's I guess it kind of just goes hand in hand with the venue.
I'd also say we didn't include this slide, but I might be cautious about, especially as the older you get, the older the generation is, because you might start hitting some of the, remember the 70s, because these are people who lived through a lot of changes. So the last school in North Carolina wasn't desegregated until 1972. So boomers remember that. So you don't necessarily want to click, remember the 70s. Remember, that was not a great time for, segregation or whatever. So I'd say you might want to be cautious, maybe that the colors, but you wouldn't want to be like, remember the specific event, because that could get a little shaky.
There's an interesting question here in the chat. Has anyone targeted senior centers, educational organizations, lifelong learning, YMCA with any success? Maybe not.
Hey there, this is Natalie Borders. I'm with Atrium Health, Wake Forest Baptist. And yes, before the pandemic, we partnered regularly with our YMCA programs, our Silver Sneakers programs there, to make sure that they were attached to a primary care. Because, you know, that's kind of the front door to the system there, hopefully before the emergency room is. So we had great success with that. A lot of people move into the area that were just looking for activities to join. So people who had lived here for a long time, maybe didn't even know about the primary care in their individual communities, or that had just moved here and were just looking for a new health system. We're a major competitor with Novant Health in this area. And so it's constantly like, who can gather these patients first? But of course, we just want them to get them to the best avenue of care. But yeah, we've had great success with senior centers, senior sneakers programs at the YMCAs, all of those.
I asked that question. This is Bill in Greenville, because I sometimes be a conduit between people like you, that if I can be an instructor at Ollie or at a educational center or senior center, I can be the link between the center and another provider, whether it be healthcare or any other provider of senior services. So, you know, it's the old adage that I think Elizabeth and Todd mentioned, go where they are. This is where they are. The second largest senior center in the state of South Carolina is 5 minutes from my front door. So 4,000 people a month go through the front door pre-pandemic. So why not be there, or any of us be there, because eventually something's going to trickle out of that.
Yes, totally agree. We would do, so pickleball was mentioned earlier. After the pickleball session on Wednesdays, which was super popular, we would bring in and do a 30-minute meet the doc rotation. So we did from primary care to specialty visits, rotating them through just to do, kind of an overview of what they offer and how they can help them live their best life. So we were trying to do exactly that, meet them where they already are and not create our own lunch and learn where they have to go somewhere else. So we were going to meet you right there.
I can't stress enough how big pickleball is. I think it's actually the fastest growing sport. I'm going to say the world. I know in the US, but I think the world too. We have pickleball courts that are packed, like someone said earlier, all day, every day. I mean, it's incredible.
My very active senior mother-in-law is big into pickleball and also walking groups. She is uniquely active for, I think she's 73, and yeah, she is. She's definitely the kind of person that you want to try to reach, because she's one of those people that's going to be proactive, better health, and do the surgery she needs so that she stays active, because she doesn't plan on slowing down at all.
Sure.
Yeah, a parallel path to that, I know too. This might be the biased golfer in me, but another sport that big communities of seniors playing golf, leagues, another way to tap into that grassroots approach of reaching folks like pickleball. I know that's a big one for seniors.
Any last comments or questions? All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. That's all we have for today's Coffee and Communications event. thank you so much to our speakers and to everyone who joined in with all of your insights and your questions. So if you enjoyed today's discussion, please consider becoming a member of CHIPRUMS and attending our conference in the fall. We'll also continue to have great events like this throughout the year, and we will be sharing today's recording and presentation slide deck so that everyone can take a look at it. All right, thank you again so much, everybody. Have a great Friday.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all your insight. We appreciate it.
Thanks, Carly. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later. Have a good
Okay,
day.
great.
All right, bye.